I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on this, that a vitamin D pill is not the same as the real sun.
Yeah, I mean, so, essentially, the literature shows that people with the highest levels of vitamin D have the lowest risk of everything.
Yeah.
And whether it's cancer, heart disease, dementia, mental health, issues, it really is, but it's really on those people that have high based on sun exposure, and also the vitamin D, of course, that you can get from food. But let's say, of course, the best source is the sun. And when it comes to supplementation can raise levels of vitamin D. It just doesn't really make any difference in the outcomes in the majority of situations. Vitamin D supplementation, there is some data on cardiovascular outcomes, on blood pressure. There is some data when it comes to asthma and pulmonary issues. And the answer is not going to be the supplement. It's going to be getting the sunshine. And when I speak all over, or people come to see me in Arizona, where do they come? They come from vitamin D deficient locations, Canada, Pacific Northwest. They come from Russia, Norway, Minnesota, my hometown of Chicago. They come from those places, and my suggestion to them is, you got to move. You got to move to a location where you get a lot of sun. You got to take a lot of vacations if you can't. And then if you need to supplement in the wintertime, go ahead and supplement in the wintertime. But sunshine is the time, the summertime is the time to stack up all that sun. That's really what's critical there on the vitamin D story. Because again, vitamin D has to go through so many different processes in the body, and eventually has to become vitamin D sulfate for it to become, truly its effective form. So there's multiple different steps to the vitamin D to make sure it's effective.
Yeah, and you've highlighted this before. It's something that I've noticed as well, that the vitamin D that's made in our skin is cholecalciferol sulfate. And the vitamin D we take in a pill is just cholecalciferol. And so one of them is fat soluble and one of them is water soluble. This is actually similar to the research that Stephanie Seneff has done. And at the end of this podcast, if we have time, we'll get into the glyphosate stuff, talking about cholesterol sulfate that's formed in the skin. But there are many things that are formed in the skin that we cannot replicate with a vitamin D pill. So there's nitric oxide, there's endorphins, there's cholesterol sulfate, and there's cholecalciferol sulfate, which is different than this form of vitamin D we take in a pill, water soluble relative to fat soluble. And as you point out, and I think this is such an important point to emphasize to people, and it recapitulates the thing that I talk about so often, which is the danger of epidemiology. We use epidemiology when it's all we've got, but we have to acknowledge its limitations, that epidemiologically, in observational studies, those with the highest levels of vitamin D always do the best. But as you're suggesting, in the interventional studies with cardiovascular outcomes, with psychiatric outcomes, with common cold outcomes, when we give people vitamin D, they don't get the same benefits that appear to be suggested by the associational epidemiology, which means there are many hypotheses we can generate from that, but it suggests that either the sun has unique benefits or the people who are in the sun more are doing other valuable things. Either way, I think you can make a really pretty strong case that being in the real sun is way better. And I love that you said this, because people will always ask me, what do I do if I live in Manchester, England? What do I do if I live in the north, in New York? Shouldn't I take vitamin D pills then? And I say, yeah, you can take a little bit of vitamin D. Don't overdose on vitamin D. Make sure it's vitamin D3 and not the D2 synthetic ergocalciferol that they're going to give you in many places at the pharmacy. But don't expect that that vitamin D pill is going to give you all the benefits that are suggested by these epidemiology trials. That's a falsehood, and that's giving people a false sense of security with just taking a vitamin D pill. I say to them, you need to get a vitamin D lamp, but your solution is a better one. Just move. But then everybody will be in the South with me now that I'm in Texas. So, I mean, I guess, but definitely getting real sunlight or real ultraviolet light in the form of a vitamin D lamp or taking a lot of vacations to Hawaii is probably the best thing here. We can't ignore this.